Hey guys, it's Jack from Potential for Flying Gravel here. Today we're going to be doing a rundown and review on the Logitech G27 racing wheel, which we have just here. I've had the wheel for about a year or so. I had a fair bit of use out of it, so I'm pretty used to its benefits and drawbacks, so we'll dive into those now. Firstly, the cost. At the time of filming this, the G27 is retailing for £269 on Logitech's website. I'll post a link to that in the description below the video. I'd say this puts the wheel in the mid to high end price for wheels. More towards the mid, I suppose. Okay, so for that price you get a few things. Most importantly in my eyes is the force feedback, which comes courtesy of a custom dual motor helical gearing system, which is what provides the wheel with resistance to your inputs, as well as informing you about important issues. So for example, if the rear of the car is getting a bit loose, it will apply a bit less feedback, so that you know how to respond, give opposite lock and such. The wheel does have 900 degrees of rotation all the way through, so that can be quite handy if you're trying to catch a massive slide, or if you've spun off and you want to try and get back on the track. However, in normal driving you're probably not going to get past the sort of 90-degree mark each way. Okay, secondly, you get two ways to shift the gears. The most often used, especially by me, is the metal paddle shifts, which are stainless steel, which are operated on the back, up and down. We're located on the back of the wheel. They're attached to the wheel, so as you turn the wheel, it does come with you. So it's easy to change up and down a gear when you're mid-corner, if you need to. The other way you can change gears is with the manual H-box, which is can be located on either the left or the right, depending on how your setup is. It has 6 forward gears and then 1 reverse gear, which you apply by pushing down and bringing it to the far right hand side. One of the things that sets this wheel apart from the others, the other cheaper alternatives, is the pedals. The G27 comes with weighted pedals, which help you to get precise throttle and brake control. So under heavy braking you'll be able to modulate it a bit more than if it was just a very light pedal. You also do get a clutch pedal, which you don't get on some of the cheaper models, which is going to be used with the H-box most of the time, or if you want to get a nice good start with the paddles. Again, these are made of stainless steel and are pretty hard wearing. You do get 6 buttons mounted on the wheel, which are on the front. You also do get a further 8 and a D-pad on the H-box, which is pretty handy because it's very similar to the layout of a PlayStation, and as this wheel is PS3 compatible as well as PC, it can be handy if you're running on GT5 or GT6, something like that. These are going to be used mainly for things headlights or brake bias, traction control, that kind of stuff, so you can easily access them. Pit limiter and things like that. Just above the wheel as well, you do have a set of LEDs that will show you the rev range as you're getting near where you need to change, which is pretty handy. So with the mounting options, there are a few different ways you can do it. The easiest, most basic way is with the included clamps. If you click these out, you can turn them left and right, moving the clamps up and down, which will allow you to easily get it straight onto the desk. Same for the H-box. You just unscrew, mount it on, and then tighten it back up, click it down, and you're done. The only downside to that is it can get a bit loose sometimes, and it's not the most stable of ways of doing it. Now they also do have screws, screw threads underneath, so you can hard mount it either to a desk or to a stand. Right now we've actually got it on the Wheel Stand Pro, which I'll leave links to in the description below as well. It's a little bit more stable when it's bolted down. It's not going to move, it's not going to come off mid-race, which you really don't want. The pedals also have a couple of mounting options. It has a tooth gripper that it uses. It sort of digs into your carpet, so it's not going to slide forward as you're pressing down too hard. That seems to work fairly well. There is also a rubber strip for use on wooden floors or laminate, just in case you haven't got carpet. Again though, they do have threads for screws, which is by far the best way. If your rig will allow it, to screw it down so that it's absolutely not going to move, because the last thing you want is it moving and you're not being able to apply full brake or throttle at the time that you need it most. We'll go and have a closer look and get a little bit more depth in into the pros and cons of the wheel. Okay, so now we're a bit close to the wheel. First off, it is a real leather finish, which is quite nice. Fairly durable, as you can see. There's a couple of little marks, but it's been in heavy use for quite some time. The size of the wheel is pretty good. It's not quite a full-size GT rim, but it does feel fairly comfortable. The paddles are in a nice place. The buttons on the front, they are a little plasticky. You know, they don't make a particularly nice noise and they don't feel great, but they serve a purpose, and it's not a particularly expensive wheel, so I don't expect any other. You do have a bit of space over to the right or the left, depending on the buttons. You could put on, you know, brake bias down, brake bias up, just to help you remember. The paddles, they're made of stainless steel along with the actual wheel itself, and they basically, as you pull them in, all they do is apply a button, and you click it in, and that's just the noise of the button connecting. You can bottom it out, but it doesn't do anything other than probably bend the metal slightly. That's pretty much it. On the front you've got your LED lights up on the front, which change colour going from sort of green to red, and as you get more towards the end you're going to have to shift up. They're quite small, so you're not likely to be looking directly at them, but they are quite bright, so they do shine and you do see that you know, oh, it's gone red, bang, change up, and it's fine. That's about it for the front of the wheel. We'll show you the mechanism for the shifters. I don't know if you have to. Right, okay. So if you can see, just here, there's a little button, and as you pull it, it just clicks it in. So if you do bottom out, all you're doing is hitting the plastic on the end. But you only need a tiny amount of pressure to put it in. They're not adjustable like some of the more expensive wheels, but they feel pretty nice. Now these bits you see here, these are one of the lock-in mechanisms. Basically they lock into place, and to unlock them you just twist a little, push in, twist a little and pop it out. Now as you turn these, basically it just moves the clamps in and out. So if you do want to, just pop those out, slide it onto your desk, tighten them back up, push it in. That's the easiest way, and if you've just bought the wheel, you want to get up and running, fine. However, they're not the most secure and they're a bit cheap and plasticky. So what I would recommend doing is underneath you have little section to run your cables out. That's actually pretty handy, and a little loop so that if you've got excess cable, they can be quite long, you can keep it hidden without it being trapped or anything underneath. These two bolts here, these are how you would mount it. So you can either mount it straight to a desk, onto wood, or to a wheel stand like we had earlier on the Wheel Stand Pro, and that's about it. You know, it's just a much better, much firmer connection. It's not going to move, it's not going to come off. As long as your desk or stand's sturdy enough, it'll be fine. Just underneath here, it's a little dark, you have like little PS2 ports, or they look a little bit like VGA, and basically they're just how you connect the shifter and the pedals. So they would basically plug in, run the cable down and wrap it up, which is why you need quite a large area underneath. But we've not had any major issues with cable tidiness underneath, just maybe on the stand and things. Cool, that about wraps it up. Oh, and it just connects via a normal USB 2.0 to the PC or PlayStation. So now we have the gearbox here, which has got the buttons on the front as well. So first of all, the actual gear stick. It is covered in leather just like the wheel, and it is an actual metal shaft. You've got 6 gears forward and 1 reverse, and they do make quite a nice connection, and it's quite easy to know when you're in gear. They really do click in, and they've got a bit of a resistance on the way back. They still seem fine even after a fair bit of use. To get into reverse you have to push it down, move it far to the right and pull it in like you would on some real cars. That's about it for the gear stick. On the front we've got the buttons. You've got your normal 4 up here that will correspond to, say, a PlayStation, which is quite convenient because they do have the same commands that would normally be there with X, square, triangle and circle. They feel okay. They're actually a lot better than the buttons on the wheel, and the 4 at the bottom, again, they're not bad. They're a little bit loose, but they seem fine. The D-pad, however, is a bit flimsy, but to be fair, you're not going to be using it that much. If you're using it on the PlayStation, it's going to be menus. On the PC, you're going to be using your wheel for the majority of it anyway. Sorry, your mouse. So this is only going to be the odd increment or decrease in brake bias or something like that maybe, or cycling through whether you want more fuel or not. The fascia is a tiny bit loose, but it's not a particularly expensive wheel, and I have had it for over a year, so a fair bit of wear and tear on there. We've got it mounted onto the desk with just the clamps, which, as you can see, forward and backwards not too bad, but it does have a bit of movement left and right. Now, you can keep tightening them, and you know, it'll be stable again for a while, but in all honesty, I would, just with the wheel underneath, you've just got your 2 mounting points there and there, and they're going to be a much more stable solution, whether it's on a desk or on a stand. Obviously, if not, you do have the clamp system, and there's this here which, if you tighten it up, it will give you a bit more stability on the back, but again, it's not perfect. And you've just got your little cable that comes out the back, which, if I pull that up, will be one of the ones we showed you earlier, and that connects into the base of the wheel. Quite a chunky connector, but there's plenty of room under there, so it doesn't matter. So we've now got the pedal deck on here. The actual base is made of plastic. It is fairly cheap plastic, but it doesn't matter, it's hard wearing, and it's fairly grippy, so you're unlikely to slip off, even if you're just barefoot, if you really have to be barefoot. You got your 3 pedals, accelerator, brake and clutch. They've got different pressures on them. The accelerator's fairly easy to push down, it's got quite a long throw, so that's quite easy to modulate, you know, how much throttle you're going to be using. The brake is really quite tough. It does take a fair bit to push it down, which is good because it means you're less likely to lock up. There's no load cell on this because it isn't a particularly expensive wheel, but it's still fairly easy as long as you don't bottom out to not lock the wheels up. And then the clutch, which is sort of in between the two. It's got a decent amount of weight in, so you're not, if you're resting your foot on it, you're not going to be pressing it down, but you know, enough resistance so that you're not just slapping it down. Also, the brake and the accelerator are the brake is further forward and just to the left, so you can do heel toe if you need to, or if you want to. Depending on the car, it's not going to make any difference, but sometimes it will. That's it for the top side. If we turn it around, on the underside, we have the gripper that I mentioned before, which is quite sharp, and that will just stick into the carpet, and you can just push it out of the way and lock it out if you want to, if you're using the hardwood floor, and you just click this to pop it back down again. Then you have the 6 rubber pads, which are going to be used if you're using it on wood or laminate, which do a pretty good job of not letting it slide. And then finally you've got 6 mounting points that you can use if you want to physically put it down onto a rig, if you can. Obviously that's going to be the most sturdy, but I've found that the pads are actually pretty good on this. They do a decent enough job. And that about wraps it up. Okay, so one thing I just wanted to mention as well, the power cable does have this power brick transformer in the middle. It's got a fair amount of length in the cable, it's just a normal DCN, and it just takes the figure of 8 power cable. So that's pretty standard, and you can usually hide it out the way. I managed to, on the Wheelstand Pro, I managed to get it to wedge with the plate that holds the pedals in case. So that was fine. So just pop that down here. All in all, the wheel's great. For the money, I've used the DF GT before it, which I thought was okay, but moving up to this one, loads better. The force feedback's much stronger, it's a much quieter wheel. The servo does still make a bit of noise, it's not silent, but it's much quieter than the DF GT. Feels nicer, much better build quality, everything's been running fine, everything's made of metal, and it's a decent buy. I would highly recommend it if you're getting more into PC sim racing. Nothing wrong with the DFGT, but if you do want to get the added realism, it's not a bad stepping stone. Okay, soon we'll bring you a review similar to this on the Club Sport wheel and the T500, and possibly even the Driving Force GT as well. But coming up next is Derek Spears' design button box, which I believe is the P2, which is running 5 toggles, 6 buttons, and 5 rotary decoders. So hope we're looking forward to giving this a go, and yeah, we'll let you know how it is soon. Cheers, catch you next time. Thanks for watching the review, guys. Hope you've enjoyed. If you have any comments, queries, questions, anything like that, please pop them down in the comments below. All of the links to pricing and availability, things like that, will be left in the description for you. Hope you enjoyed. We'll catch you next time with the Derek Spears design box. Cheers.